Hi there, everybody. I had meant to just be zooming in a little bit and I bumped the start live button. So I apologize for the jiggly camera for a few seconds there because I didn't actually mean to start the live, but that's okay. I'm only about 30 seconds early or so. I'll just kind of hang out and wait till other people are popping in. What I have here in front of me are the makings for my next class, which you still have time to sign up for. The RSVP date is the 15th. So that's just a few more days out. You'll receive all the supplies to make 10 cards, so you'll make 2 of each of these, and it features the Stitched Leaves dies, which are on page 165 of the annual catalog. So again, all the parts and pieces to make these cards, and the cost is $25. So if you're interested, pop over to my Facebook page. There is an event for that, and you can click on there and then click the going. If you'll notice, sometimes it says interested right away when you get there. What you're going to want to do is just hover on that for a second with your cursor, or click it or something like that, and you'll see an option that instead says going. So you want to do that and click the going, because then I know that you're really serious and want to take the class. So interested is kind of like you saying maybe, which is, totally cool. You can absolutely do that until you're really ready to commit, and that way you don't lose track of the event. But you definitely, if you really, really, really want to be going, you definitely want to make sure that I know that by clicking on the going. And sorry, I forgot a ink pad. Had to walk across the room there. Alrighty. I hope y'all had a really great weekend. We were pretty privileged to have both of our good old home teams win on the football field this weekend. That doesn't always happen between Badgers and Packers, so it was kind of a pleasant surprise. And if any of you are Packer fans and watched that game, I hope you've recovered. I'm pretty sure I had a mild cardiac event waiting for the end of that game. That was just crazy. But I love me some Packer games, so we stayed in it till the end. All right. Well, we'll wait for a couple more people to hop on, but I'm going to go ahead and get started let's review what you should have on hand tonight. You wanted to have a card base that is 5.5 by 8.5, scored at 4 1/4. I'm going to be using Granny Apple Green. Then you wanted a neutral piece, so white, vanilla, something along those lines. That is 3 3/4 by 5. And then you also want another little piece that's 1 inch, excuse my hiccups, by 3 3/4. We might cut this down, so don't worry if yours is longer or whatever. It's going to be cut down, reshaped, so don't worry too much about the actual length of that. And then you need 4 squares that were each 1 1/4 by 1 1/4. And I said pick 2 and make 2 of each. So, hi Carol, hi Kathy Jo, hi Mary Lynn. All right, good to see so many of you guys popping in here tonight. So pick 2 of something and cut 2 squares of each. So 2 different colors, 2 different designer series papers, some kind of combination like a DSP plus a color. So I have 4 pieces of cardstock. I picked Flirty Flamingo and Granny Apple Green. And then some of my samples have some of those other options, so I will kind of share what those might look like for you guys as well. All right, so hopefully you have all those supplies ready to go. You also need to have a focal point that's about a 2 by 2 size. It's going to go, I'll show you how I'm putting mine together. Normally I do some kind of like shape, like a square circle, something like that. I decided to go with a punched image, so I'm going to show you how I'm putting that together. I'm going to be using the Sweet Ice Cream set and the matching ice cream cone builder punch. Whoop, that's right in the little flashlight. There we go. Now it's not quite blinding you guys. These are in your annual catalog. You can find Sweet Ice Cream on page 32 and the punches in the back on page 149. All right, so to get started on that for me, I have Cinnamon Cider and Flirty Flamingo, and I'm going to go ahead and make myself an ice cream cone. So I'm going to be taking the ice cream cone bottom, and they've designed this stamp to have some shading already in it. So as you can see when I pull this off, there's a little bit of what you might think is like, oh my gosh, it's an empty space, she missed it. Nope, that's actually designed that way in the stamp set. Give it a little bit of light and shade and changing of color. All right, and then I'm gonna do my scoop in Flirty Flamingo. And then I'm gonna show you a trick for, you can tell I definitely using up some scraps here, and they're very tiny pieces. And you might think, wow, those are kind of hard to hold on to when you're going inside a big punch like that. And that is true. So what I do is I take a Post-it note, attach it to the corner of my piece, and it acts like extra length to be able to fit that right inside there. So you've got your, I'm just gonna lean over for a second, make sure I've got that in there. All right, there's my scoop. And let's get my ice cream cone set here. Whoop, I need my these away. I did it on the wrong end of the paper. All right, hold on. All I need to do is down here. There we go, because it helps if you push it in from the right direction. All right, and here's my ice cream cone. And bam. All right. So then to build this as the focal point for my project, I'm just going to take a little bit of adhesive to the bottom of the scoop and then lay it over just a tiny bit so it looks like it is on top of the cone, like so. All right, so that's my focal point. You might want to have some dimensionals handy if you want your focal point to stand up off your project. All right, so here's the part where you can start joining me, because hopefully you had your focal point all done. Grab whatever you're going to be using for your phrase and your 1-inch strip of neutral cardstock. I have a happy birthday, and I'm going to be stamping mine in gray apple green. So go ahead and have your phrase on there, and then I'll show you a couple different things you could do with that once you've got that stamped. So you can absolutely leave it as it is if you like the square edges and the width being exactly the same as the layer that we will end up having on here. Go ahead and leave it like that. You can do, I'm going to show you a couple different things. So my piece is going to look a little funny at first because I'm going to show you a couple different things. If you want that cute pennant shape, and you don't have the pennant builder punch, what you can do is you cut up from the center a little bit and then cut from each of the sides to meet that point where you cut in the middle. And like so, I have to come through just a little bit more this way. And that way you get a pretty even little flag, pennant, indent, whatever you guys want to call that. Now, if you want that just on the one side, you can do that, and it'll kind of look like a little banner going off this way. You could have both ends look the same, or you could do kind of a fun angle cut on each of the ends. Oops, let me flip that back over. So imagine like that was cut off yet. So you'd have kind of like this fun, all right, now my geometry is failing me. If somebody knows the name of that geometric shape, go ahead and shout it out. I want to say like a parallelogram or something. And, you know, I should probably just go check with my kiddo who took geometry last year because I bet he'd be able to tell me. Okay, so just for the purpose of making my card not look too wacky, I'm going to go ahead and finish that angle cut so they kind of look the same. There we go. All right, so there is my phrase ready to be set on the card. All right, so let's start putting it all together. Get your card base and your bone folder or whatever you're using to make your nice sharp crease there. And grab your piece of white and your 4 squares, whatever they are. So you're going to alternate parallelogram. I'm right, Tina? Excellent. Wow, I can't believe I actually remembered something from geometry. That was only like a bazillion years ago. All right, so put some adhesive on the back of one of the squares. Now here's where you have a little bit of choice again. If you want them to be kind of closer together, kind of look, we're going to be working in the upper 2/3 of this, not dead center. And you can either kind of go toward a corner and you'll have more space in between all the squares, or I'm going to drop mine down a little bit and be a little bit closer to each other. So I'm going to go up just a tiny bit from there. Okay. So you've got one of your green, or whatever, your color number 1, and then you're going to put your color number 2 or your pattern number 2 right next to it, leaving just a little bit of space so that they look kind of even left to right. I actually think I got that pretty good on the first try. Usually I end up having to adjust, so I'll show you how you could, as long as you haven't glued it down too hard right now, you can adjust them pretty easily without destroying what you've already made. Or you can go ahead and lay these out before you put adhesive on them if you feel more comfortable doing that. All right, so now go back to your color number 2 or your pattern number 2. Adhesive on the back of that. It's going to go under the first number 1 that we did. Again, leaving about the same kind of spacing. Okay, and then as you probably guessed, your last one goes right there. All right. So there is that. All right, then we're going to put that on our card base. I'm just going to tape mine down directly. If you want a little bit of height and interest, go ahead and pop dimensionals on the back of that before you put it on your card front. It should be cut to be a pretty even border with a decent amount of your card base showing. That's why this one's kind of fun to show off just your card base color as well. All right, I am going to take my focal point and I'm going to put a couple dimensionals on it because I do want it to be raised off a little bit. Again, if that's something you want for yours, go ahead, add your dimensionals now or just put on some regular adhesive. All right, the boring part, ripping off the backings, of course. Oh, did I get that one? I did. All right, your focal point is going to go in the center of all of these squares, like so. So it acts as a background for your focal point image. And then this again, if your phrase is smaller, cut it down however you want to be doing. It's going to be filling in this bottom part right here. And I do it on dimensionals as well, just to give it a little bit of lift and interest. So I'll put one of those on each end. And there are other ways to highlight these. I know they're both neutral pieces and you might think, well, they don't really show off against each other, but I'll give you some ideas. Hi, Kathy, nice to see you joining us tonight. I'll give you some ideas on how to, shake that up a little bit as well. All right, and there you go. That is your finished project. So I will go through my samples while you guys are finishing that up. I'll leave it out here so you can see. All right, the first one I did, I've kind of fallen in love with the frosted gingerbread suite that's in the mini catalog. I hesitated at first on it, and now at first I just got the paper, now I got the stamps and the dies, and I think I'm kind of in love. So you might be seeing a little bit more of this suite. Hi, Karen. Hey, no problem being a little late. It's easy to catch up, or of course, always, rewind it later. So what I did here, this is a stamp from the stamp set. So I used it a little bit in place of where this is hiding out. But I did still have my phrase. The phrase I actually took from, where did I write down? Heartfelt Wishes, which is on page 57 of the mini catalog, because I like the way it's spread across the whole thing. It takes up all the space. And then this is Real Red and Old Olive. And this I actually die cut from the designer series paper. There are stamps and everything that you could actually get that same kind of imagery, but sending it through your die machine, lickety split, so super easy. And the images on there are actually big enough and easy enough to fussy cut. If you're hesitant on a die cut or you don't have a die cutting machine, they're actually not bad to fussy cut. And I'm not a big fan of fussy cutting, so having me say that is kind of a real thumbs up for that. Okay, this is taking it a little bit further. This is Stars Are Shining bundle. The stamp set comes from the stamped image there, and the phrase come from there. The stars are punched from the silver foil, but the punch is the one that goes with the bundle. So there's a really itty bitty teeny star right in the middle of the big one. I used the silver foil and the I forgot to write it down. Whimsy and Wonder designer series paper. There we go. It's all in the mini catalog. Stars Are Shining bundle is on page 14. The silver foil is page 75. And then I used a little bit of the cord. You get the silver and the gold together. It's actually in the annual catalog on page 140. And you get a really decent amount of each, but brought together. And I love using that cord for so many different things. It's a great little pop of metallic. Really easy to work with, ties great knots, all that kind of stuff. And you get a lot of bang for your buck out of that one. And then when I first had it set up, I thought it was a little too stark of that really big white background. So hopefully you can see it here. You'll be able to see it in the photos better later too. I took a blending brush with my Blushing Bride ink, and I just kind of brushed around the whole card or the whole base of that neutral piece, so that it took some of the whiteness out, added a little more of the pink. Hopefully you can see it here. And like I said, it'll show up much better in the photographs when I take them later. So, so there's another option. And there again, I used, a DSP and like a color. So here was 2 colors again. Here's adding 1 DSP in with a color. I'm gonna move this off because it's so reflective. It's kind of like shining right in our eyeballs. Okay, the other thing you could consider doing is flipping this to a horizontal layout, which is what I did here. And instead of using a phrase for my 1-inch type thing, I used some ribbon instead. So if you look, this would be, the same layout, so just turned on its side. My focal point has my phrase in it, so I didn't need to have anything else. And so I added the glitter ribbon from the annual catalog. So this pumpkin shape actually comes from the cute I'm sorry, the Clever Cats on page 53 of the mini catalog. And then this is the designer series paper called Cute Halloween on page 51, and then just regular pumpkin pie. So again, I'm mixing a DSP and a color. Fun way to kind of bring attention to both. They kind of offset each other really nicely depending on how busy your patterns are. That would be another way to think about it. And like I said, consider using other things in place of this 1-inch strip of phrase. You could use, like I said, the ribbons are a really good place to use that for, especially some of our wider ribbons that we have. It'll take up that space just as nicely. All right, so let me get these out of the way and then I'll show you the stepped up version of what I did here tonight. Okay, so instead of the Granny Apple Green and the Flirty Flamingo cardstock, I took these patterns out of the designer series paper pack for each of those colors. And I picked the one that kind of has a little hash marking going on with it because I thought it kind of resembled the ice cream cone idea. I added a layer of Flirty Flamingo behind the white. I also ran the white through my embossing folder of Tasteful Textiles. And again, that'll show up better in the photographs I take later when you'll see those get posted. That embossing folder is page 155 of the annual catalog. You can see I also stepped up my ice cream cone a little bit. So, and part of that set, in addition to your images, your base images, you've got like your little hash marks for making the cone texture. You've got dots and sprinkles to add to ice cream, little drips to come off of like popsicles and stuff like that. So that's really kind of cute. So I did that here. I added sprinkles to my ice cream ball or ice cream scoop. There we go. And I added the little hash marks of the cone onto my cone part. And I also took that little sprinkle stamp and I added it to the back of the happy birthday phrase because I just thought it kind of filled in some of the white space and made it a little fun and festive. I did stamp off the color on the background and then did this in full strength Granny Apple Green so that they weren't conflicting with each other. And then I took the banner Pick-a-Punch and I did the little flag image, and I also have just a tiny piece of the cinnamon cider, just drawing in from that brown to add a little more brown over there. And again, with that little Pick-a-Punch done with that little flag imagery right there. All right, so like I said, you can do lots of different options with this kind of phrasing. Cut it down different shapes, add a little detail to it. You could add your bling, a little bit of ribbon, all that kind of stuff onto your banner phrase, or again, use them as completely as a substitute for what you got going on there. So let me lay all these back out again. There you go. A lot of green and pink tonight, apparently. I must have been in that kind of a mood. But honestly, I did actually go to my cardstock stash and look at it and go, what haven't I used in a while? And that is where Flirty Flamingo came out, and then it just kind of rolled from there. And this, of course, has the Blushing Bride in the DSP, so that was kind of easy to pick. All right, Karen, thank you so much. I'm glad you liked them. Can't wait to see what you guys make out of these. This is another, great way, again, especially if you have square punches of different sizes, you can really do that super quick and easy then. You could consider other shapes as well. I mean, just consider like, rectangles instead, or a different punch shape, or even circles. Just play around with it and see what you can come up with for a little bit of a background. And oh, I forgot to point out too, I rounded the corners of a couple from two opposite sides of that. So it gives it just a little bit different look, a little more white space, and a little different look to that little background part. And we have the, I forgot to write it down, I'll put it in the notes. There is one punch in the annual catalog that has 3 different points on it, and one of those is a corner rounder. So if you don't have a corner rounder, that is how you find it in our catalog. So look back in those punches. It also has like a little hole for ribbon and a fancy decorative element for a corner, I believe is all in that trio. Hey, trio punch. I think it's trio. Alrighty. Thank you guys all for joining me tonight again for another Make It With Me Monday. And I'll see you guys next week. Take care. Bye-bye.